1, 0. Hey girls, how are you today?
Fine.
So, welcome to my class. We are going to continue with my lesson. Today is Wednesday, October 30, and the lesson is describe clothes. So, before we go to the book, I'm going to show you the images because we are going to remember some vocabulary that we saw last class. So, without seeing your books, and do you remember what is this one? What's that?
Shirt.
Okay, very good. Do you remember what is this? And be careful with the pronunciation.
Sweater.
Nice. Do you remember what is this one?
A skirt.
Very good. Look at this girl, beautiful girl. What is that?
A dress.
Very good. Do you remember what is this one?
A blouse.
Very good. And do you remember what is this one?
A tie.
Very good. You remember that. Now, let's go back to page 48, please. The lesson is describe clothes. So you know the vocabulary about clothes, and now what we are going to do is talk about adjectives. Adjectives are very important in English, so you have to consider all the time the adjectives in your English. Does anybody remember what adjectives means? If I say adjectives, what is the first thing that comes to your mind? Do you remember that? Adjectives? What does adjective do? What adjectives do normally is describe. It's going to describe something, okay? So, we have a vocabulary in your books. Can you please, Merari, read number 1, vocabulary.
Vocabulary. Opposite adjectives to describe goods. Read and listen. Then listen again and repeat.
Very good. Thank you very much. So we have a couple of new images here. You have the images in color here, just in case you want to check the colors. Here it is. So we have, I'm going to tell you the number and you are going to tell me the pronunciation. Don't worry if you don't pronounce correctly. We are going to improve that after the second time. So number 1,
New.
everybody, number 1.
New.
Number 2,
Old.
number 3.
Dirty.
Number 4,
Clean.
number 5,
Loose.
number 6,
Tight.
number 7,
Cheap.
number 8,
Expensive.
number 9,
Long.
number 10.
Short.
Those are the adjectives. Those are the adjectives. But because before we just improve and see more details about that, let's fix some pronunciation. So repeat after me. New,
New.
old,
Old.
dirty.
Dirty.
Very good. Dirty.
Dirty.
Number 4, clean.
Clean.
Number 5, loose.
Loose.
Number 6, tight.
Tight.
Number 7, cheap.
Cheap.
Number 8, expensive.
Expensive.
Number 9, long.
Long.
And number 10, short.
Short.
Very good. You know the pronunciation. These are adjectives. Now remember that we talk about adjectives. Remember that we are talking about verbs. Remember that we are talking about nouns. Remember that we talk about verbs. We talk about verbs, nouns, and now we are going to talk about adjectives. What are the adjectives? Again, adjectives are going to describe things. Sometimes adjectives describe people, young students, not very old, but old teacher. Comparing with you, I'm old, so I'm describing people. Also, old or new, depending on the things. We are going to describe things, okay? Does that make sense? That that adjectives mean describe. Every time that you think about adjectives, repeat after me. Adjectives,
Adjectives.
you are going to describe. You can describe things, you can describe people, you can describe places, you can describe the weather. The weather is cold today. You are describing things. So every time that we describe, we are going to use what?
Adjectives.
Very good. So look at the examples. I have new and I have old, the first one. The second one, dirty and clean, right? I'm going to use an example on the board because the image, although you have a clear image there, I'm going to use an example in the board. Well, I don't know. Let me see. Where is my marker? I think it's over there. Okay? So, look at my board. This is dirty. Can you see the image over there? Dirty. And if I erase this one, now this part is clean. So again, dirty and clean. Loose and tight. Remember that we did an exercise in the grammar part and you asked me, teacher, what is loose and what is tight? These are opposite words. Now I'm going to use an example in my clothes. If you see my pant, this is like tight. But if you see my shirt, it's kind of loose. So it has to do with the white. When it's loose, it's like that, loosey, right? I'm going to use Merari's example. Merari, I'm going to use your clothes. Look at this. This is loose. Make sense? Loose. And the opposite should be like this one. This is tight. Does that make sense? That is the explanation for loose and tight. Now let's go with the next adjective. What's number 7? Cheap. Now look at the one important part here. Look at the price. Here you have 1 and here you have 1, 2, 3. So that means that this is cheap in terms of money and this is expensive in terms of money. Does that make sense? Cheap and expensive. I don't know. I can use the iPhones and the Samsung. Which one is more expensive? The iPhones or the Samsungs? The iPhones, because it costs a lot of money, right? So in this case, the iPhone is expensive or cheap?
Expensive.
And the Samsungs are?
Cheap.
If we have to compare them, okay? Very good. Now let's go to the last example of adjectives. We have long and short. We're talking about the shirts. So the first skirt is long, and the second skirt, the red one, it's a red one, yes, right? The red one is really short. Again, that has to do with sizes, long and short. Make sense? Okay, is there any question? Let's do the wrap up for this part. What can you tell me about adjectives? Adjectives normally describe things, describe places, describe people. Very good. So every time that you are talking about adjectives, you are going to describe things. Okay. Now, let's go to the next part, which is the grammar. What is the grammar goal? We are going to see the 2 rules. Can you please read the first part, the name, adjectives?
Adjective placement.
Mm-hmm.
Adjective come before the noun that describes.
I'm going to stop there. Adjectives come before the nouns they describe. That's very important. So if you are describing, it's not, remember that in English is different than in Spanish all the time. So we are going to do different things in our language. In this case, English. Adjectives come before the nouns they describe. Let's read the example, the name.
A long skirt,
Very good.
tight shoes,
Very good.
a red and black tie.
So what is the first word that you see? The adjectives. A long skirt. What is the adjective? The adjective is long. and the noun is a skirt. Now, look at this. The adjective goes first, erect, and then the noun, shirt. In Spanish is sometimes different, right? So, but in English is totally different. The adjective goes first, an old dress, a young student, a beautiful girl. So we have the adjective first and then the noun. Does that make sense? That is the first rule. Second rule, please, Carmen.
Adjectives don't change. A clean shirt. Clean shirt, not clean shirt.
Very good. Now, in this case, you have to remember something very important. Singular versus plural. The adjectives are not going to have plurals. For example, a clean shirt. It's not cleans shirt. It's just the adjective, singular, but if you want to tell me the context in plural, the noun will be in plural. Does that make sense? Again, I'm going to use this one. I'm going to transform this one in plural. So what do I need if I want to transform this one in plural? Shirts. But remember that in Spanish it's totally different. Zapatos rojos. That's different, but we are not in Spanish, we are in English. So that will be red shirts. This is not going to change. This is going to change, yes, because I'm putting the plural there, but in this case, the adjective does not change for plural. Does that make sense? Yes?
Yes.
Questions? As you can see in the example, not cleans shirts, not red's shirt, because I'm not going to make plural my adjective. But here's one more time. In Spanish, it's totally different. You can say, like, you can put the plural here in Spanish, but in English, it doesn't work like that. Okay. Very good. Questions?
No.
Okay. So, let's go to the exercise 4, grammar practice. Can you please read the instructions, Merari?
Write 2 descriptions for each picture. Follow the model.
Okay, let's go, before you do that, let's go to the practice in the pictures. Let's go to new and old. Let's make plural. Number 1. Can you make plural? New. Well, new is my adjective. You don't have to put a plural. What is the image? Number 1, what can you see?
New shoes.
New shoes. With number 1. Let's do plural on number 2.
Old shoes.
All shoes. I'm not saying all shoes. I'm saying all shoes. Make sense? Let's go to number 3. Let's do it plural. Shirt, t-shirt. Okay. Let's make it plural. Dirty t-shirts.
T-shirts.
Very good. Let's do plural number 9.
Long skirts.
Long skirts.
Long skirts.
Number 10.
Short.
Skirt.
Very good. That was the idea. So, one more time, Merari, grammar practice. Write.
Write 2 descriptions for each picture. Follow the model.
Good. Can you complete number 1, 2, and 3? And we are going to check your answers in a moment.